The momentum behind Michael Bloomberg's campaign is picking up among some current and former big city mayors, places with diverse populations, places like Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, Compton, Miami, and they are backing him despite his record on stop and frisk policing and his past comments about women. Moments ago, a senior advisor to the campaign of Senator Bernie Sanders had this to say about Bloomberg's rise in the polls.
We call Mike Bloomberg the billionaire backstop. I mean, his whole campaign is designed to stop Bernie Sanders from getting the nomination and going on to beat Donald Trump. I mean, look, Democratic voters are united. Given what we have in the White House, we don't want a president who's going to cut Social Security, who's opposed to raising minimum wage, who wants to ration health care. We don't want that. We don't want someone who has racist criminal justice policies. And so that's why we don't want Mike Bloomberg. We got that now with Trump. We don't need that with Mike Bloomberg.
Let's get a response to all that. Michael Nutter, former mayor of Philadelphia and national political chair for the Bloomberg campaign, is with me now. Mr. Mayor, welcome, sir. Your response to Jeff Weaver.
Well, I think it's unfortunate whenever Democrats, kind of aggressively, if not savagely, attack other Democrats. Mike is running against Donald Trump. He's virtually said nothing, and certainly nothing negative, with regard to Senator Sanders.
There is that ad that you all just released, the Bloomberg ad against Bernie Sanders.
The ad is not negative on the senator. The ad is factual about things that his supporters, who sometimes are pretty aggressive, if not rather nasty on social media, or actual headlines from media outlets. Everything in that ad is accurate. And, the senator, unfortunately, has also been attacking pretty aggressively Mike Bloomberg over the last 2 weeks, if not the last few months. So, I mean, we're not going to be attacked and have nothing to say. We're not going to be a punching bag for anybody.
Is that why the mayor punched back? Because of the incoming from Team Sanders?
Yeah, I mean, this is a campaign. We'd love it to be a campaign of ideas, not a campaign of personal destruction. But, there comes a point where if you talk about us and say inaccurate things or attack things that are not true, and you're trying to undermine another Democratic candidate, we will respond. There's no question about that. The senator, has been aggressive. Donald Trump has been aggressive, both of whom have actually now finally figured out that Mike Bloomberg is the only candidate who has a real path to not only winning the Democratic nomination, but actually beating Donald Trump. It's not a coincidence, Brooke, that both Senator Sanders and Donald Trump are aggressively, simultaneously attacking Mike Bloomberg because they're worried about our rise and the fact that we are unifying a campaign that actually puts an operation together that's built to last through primaries and caucuses as well as the general election. That's why we're being attacked.
What is that path? Because, you all aren't on the ballot until Super Tuesday. A lot of people describe this campaign as an experiment. What's the path to win?
Well, it may be different. It's not an experiment. You know as well as I do, Brooke, that with every respect to the first four contests, they represent a little less than 4% of the delegates that you need to take the nomination. Super Tuesday, March 10th, and all of March is about 60%, with a very front-loaded process, especially including California. Again, I think some of the candidates have realized that the significance of California on Super Tuesday, if you have great success there, and I think this is what's going on with Senator Sanders, great success on Super Tuesday, especially in California, puts you in a position where the math may not just work going forward. You could have so much of a lead that virtually no one can catch you. And that's why we're seeing such an aggressive, at times nasty, response either from the senator and some of the things that he has said, and certainly his supporters on various forms of social media. Other candidates have actually complained. Some of the union folks are complaining about how aggressive people are being. I've seen some of that as well.
No,
so
I asked
let's
Jeff
talk
about that, the culinary
policy.
union.
Let's talk about programs.
I know, but
and not
if I may,
personalities.
if I may, on the dollar side of this, I know that Bloomberg, yes, of course, he wants the nomination and the presidency, but he has pledged up to $1 billion to whoever becomes the nominee, right? He has talked about that. He wants to put his money behind whoever can take Donald Trump out of the office. And so Jeff Weaver made news because he just told me, I asked him, would you guys accept that Bloomberg money if Bernie Sanders is the eventual nominee? And do you know what he said to me? No.
Well, Mike Bloomberg he didn't say he was going to write anyone a check, and actually we can't. But Mike's commitment is to defeating Donald Trump, and he can use his resources in all the ways that are legally available to help bring down Donald Trump. So, Mr. Weaver or the senator, they can say whatever they want to say. We're focused on defeating Donald Trump one way or the other. If they want to be, that's how they're going to run their campaign. We're focused on winning the general election with Mike as the nominee, but somehow, some way, if it doesn't work out, the true mark of a leader and a champion is someone who continues the fight even if they are not in the final rounds. That's the kind of campaign that Mike Bloomberg is running.
On policy, Mayor Nutter, I want to give you the opportunity to respond to this because I know you've seen the New York Times opinion columnist Charles Blow has been vehement in how he feels against Mike Bloomberg, right? And so let me just read part of his latest column today, and I want you to respond. He wrote, how many people rightly complaining about kids in cages at the border are simply willing to overlook all the kids Michael Bloomberg put in cages as a result of stop and frisk? How many people who stormed Washington during the Women's March cheered #MeToo and recoiled in horror as Trump was accused by multiple women of sexual impropriety are now willing to ignore the accusations against Bloomberg? And for what, he writes, it's not as if Democrats don't have viable candidates to choose from, none of whom even come close to the scale of Bloomberg's transgressions. Talk to me about that. And on stop and frisk, why have you decided to throw your support behind Mike Bloomberg and forgive him, accept his apology?
Sure. Yeah, well, I accept his apology because I know it's sincere, and I also served at around about the same time. Some of our time overlapped while Mike was in New York and I was mayor here in Philadelphia. Mike Bloomberg has demonstrated over the years an absolute commitment to reducing violence, to stopping gun violence in particular, and taking on the NRA. When you come into office, either in New York or Philly, and you have excessively high homicide numbers, 700 plus in New York, nearly 400 in Philly when each of us came into office, both of us cared about our citizens, and most of those victims were black and brown men. So as a mayor, unlike virtually anyone else in the city, you do have a personal responsibility to bring those numbers down and reduce the violence. At the same time, Mike knows that mistakes were made, and he has taken responsibility, which is what a leader does. But the fact of the matter is, a 48% reduction in homicides in New York City, that's a whole lot of black and brown people who were not killed. 9,200 people, 9,200 fewer homicides in his 12 years in office as compared to the 12 years before. So no one's perfect. Mike Bloomberg is not perfect. Everything did not go well, but he's taken responsibility. He has apologized to the black community, the brown community, and many others. And the work and the testament of his commitment are things like the Greenwood Initiative, 100,000 new black-owned businesses with employees, 1 million new black homeowners trying to deal with the issues of wealth and the wealth gap between blacks and whites in the United States of America. The reduction in incarceration in New York City while crime was coming down, 39% reduction, whereas in many other places it was going up. So was it a perfect tenure? No. I've never met a perfect elected official, but that man's heart and soul and being is in the right place. He is a true leader.
Michael Nutter, appreciate you. We got many months to go. I know we'll be talking again. Thank you.
I hope so. Thank you.
Coming up next, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo insists that